Greetings, everyone, and welcome to an oh my god, who didn't John Stanley interview edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh yeah.
Whoa. And who are you, sir?
I, sir, am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry STROTHE.
And I'm James GONIS.
So let's get right to it. For this episode, our topic and our guest go hand in hand.
Oh, yeah.
From 1979 to 1984, he was the host of the San Francisco Bay Area TV series Creature Features, taking over from the original host, the man, the legend, Bob Wilkens. He is the author of many books, including several editions of the Creature Features movie guide, indispensable, right?
Right.
The Gang That Shot Up Hollywood, the novels World War III, aka Napalm Sunday,
Wow.
and Bogart 48, the autobiographical I Was a TV Horror Host,
Oh,
and
great
the
book.
recent follow-up to that classic, The Career That Dripped with Horror.
Yes.
When it comes to films, he directed the love letter to the horror genre Nightmare in Blood, as well as producing many other movies, documentaries, music videos, and shorts. And during his time as the host of Creature Features and his 33-year stint as an entertainment writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, he had the dream job of interviewing countless film stars, filmmakers, writers, and other celebrities, which really makes him the must-have guest for this topic.
That's
right.
Please welcome back horror host supreme and monster kid royalty, John Stanley in John Stanley's Celebrity Onslaught.
Yeah. John Stanley.
Thank
Welcome
you
back.
so much.
Oh,
Great to be on Monster Party.
Oh,
honor.
Great to
I
have
love
you.
it.
honor.
I never thought I would hear that again, but it's fantastic. It really fills me with joy.
John, you know, Matt and I, we grew up in the Bay Area. We watched you religiously. I mean, you were an idol to me and Matt, and just to have you with us is so great. And you got to interview so many celebrities over the years.
Yes,
I mean,
I know. I was so lucky to get a job at the San Francisco Chronicle because I was still in college, and it was a job as a copy boy. And the first thing they told me on the day I went to try out for the job, we don't promote copy boys. They never become reporters or anything else.
Really?
Yeah. So in less than a year, I was asked to be a replacement for the summer on the This World magazine. And inside was the date book, the Sunday date book, or the pink section, or the pinky,
Oh, I remember that.
because it was on pink paper.
Yeah.
That's right.
And after those 6 months, they came back to me and said, I was starting to be a copy boy again, and they said, John, we have a member of the staff who is an alcoholic, and he hasn't shown up to work.
Oh my gosh.
Fired. So we'd like you to replace him.
Wow.
Thank
Also, Payne Knickerbocker, the movie critic,
Yeah.
he allowed me to go out and interview certain movies.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's like a dream job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, he went to Europe on a trip, and he said, "While I'm gone, you can interview, you can review many opening films that are opening," and I was able to do several.
Oh.
He was gone. Although I never
Wow.
became a full-time movie critic, I did them off and on over the years.
Right.
But you did
Yeah.
so many.
But the celebrities, it was great when I did Creature Features because I knew all of the PR people in the Bay Area and in Hollywood at the studios.
Right.
And Walt Disney would send me the star of their new movie.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
Yes, he would come be in the show on Friday. Then that night I would interview him at a restaurant in San Francisco.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was able to get two stories for one
Nice.
TV interview and a story for the Chronicle.
Oh, so it was very economical too. So that was kind of a neat thing.
Got a lot of coverage that way.
Before we went on the air here, you were telling us a little bit of a story about Lucille Ball and her connection.
Yeah, we don't think of her as a horror.
No, like just comedian.
Yeah,
she's
legend.
She's an actress and a comedian who did I Love Lucy and The Lucy Show. And I got to interview her in 1975.
Wow.
And, she was making a TV movie with Jackie Gleason and Art Carney, and they were also at her house that night.
Wow.
And after we did the interviews about the coming TV show and so on and her career, I said, Lucy, a lot of people don't know that you ran Desilu after you and Desi Arnaz separated.
Yes,
divorced.
Right.
She says, yes, I ran the studio. And I said, you created Star Trek. She said, yes. We made the second pilot in 1966, and I got a call from NBC. They loved the pilot, and they want to do the show. But I had to promise them that we would produce the episodes.
Wow.
So she called a staff meeting, and when they heard what it was, they said, no, Lucy, Gene Roddenberry is impossible to work with. Oh, no.
Really?
And so she sat there in total disarray, feeling horrible. How am I going to tell all those wonderful people we're not going to do the show? And she says, finally, I couldn't stand it any longer. I picked up the phone, I called NBC, and I said, I promise you that we will make the episodes. And that's how the show got started. And that's 1966. I went on the set. They were making The City on the Edge of Forever.
Wow.
You were on the set?
I got to meet Leonard Nimoy.
Wow.
And Leonard, he said, John, I'm really worried about this program. Put these funny ears on me. The fans got to think I'm a kind of a comedy character.
Right.
From a science fiction thing. Or are they going to believe that we're all trying to be serious about our conquest of the universe?
Right.
Aboard the USS Enterprise. And so he was quite worried about it, but it didn't. It turned out to be the right move. The episodes worked fine.
Right.
And I even sold a script, not a script, but a story outline to Gene Roddenberry.
Wow.
Did you? Really?
And I wrote several more, and they called me and said, John, come to L.A.
Whoa.
But then they called me again and says, nope, Star Trek just got canceled.
Oh, man. Jeez.
What could have been?
What might have been several stories into scripts, but I'll never know for sure.
Right.
That's amazing.
But
Now,
Gene Roddenberry was wonderful. He sent me letters off and on all the time. Yeah.
Nice.
Now, speaking of City on the Edge of Forever, that was written by Harlan Ellison, and I saw really
he was
amazing.
on the set that day.
Was he really?
Wow.
Yes.
Well, was he like arguing and being angry at everybody?
A letter for me. He typed up a note. He had a typewriter over in the corner.
Really?
Wow.
And
my God.
somewhere at home, I still have that.
Oh my gosh,
He
that's awesome.
described what was going on. And
You had a
City
great
on the
interview
Edge of
with him.
Forever won an award.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Writers Guild
So-
Award, right?
Matt,
Yeah,
what was
right.
that you said?
Yeah.
I said you had an interview with him that we saw
Harlan
on
Ellison.
your YouTube channel.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
right.
you seemed like
He
you
was a
got
hard
along with
guy to
him pretty
deal
well.
with. He was a hard guy to deal with.
Yeah.
He could be very nasty.
Yeah. That's his reputation.
He
Yeah.
would see me and say, you did that silly interview with Mimi Van Doren or Edie Williams. I said, well,
I think he's missing the point, though, John, because
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
you are giving exposure to these people who aren't normally seen. So
yeah.
there were so many
Exactly.
times when I wanted to say, Harlan, just mellow out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. John, it's true about Lucille Ball because I also had read about, not only did she champion Star Trek, but she also was a huge influence in getting Mission Impossible to stay on the air.
Yes,
she
that's
was
right.
also
That was produced by Desi Wu.
That's right. Yeah,
Desi Wu produced several TV series that were popular.
Yeah, a lot of times she was one of the few people who believed in a project when others didn't, and those projects ended up being historical, classic, legendary shows. So
yes,
she was much more.
There's a feature film playing in theaters right now that runs 2 hours and 50 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to see it tomorrow.
Oh, cool! Yeah,
okay.
But she was.
Day, you know.
She was definitely
taking me there.
She was definitely more than just an actress comedian. She was a very powerful and creative producer as well.
She was excellent.
But John, speaking of Star Trek, though, you bring up Lucy, but you bring up Leonard Nimoy. But in '82, you on Creature Features, you during the premiere of Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan, you interviewed William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, Nicholas Meyer. Could you tell us a bit about that?
That was in 1982, The Wrath of Khan.
Oh, right. Love it.
Yeah, that was one of the greatest interviews that I thought I attended. I got to the theater ahead of time because my plane was kind of early, and I took a car to Paramount, and I knew where the theater was because I'd been to Paramount many times. And I'm standing there at the door. They haven't unlocked the door yet. And I hear a voice. I look behind me, and William Shatner and Nimoy are walking side by side. And Nimoy is saying, "Did you ever see the final print of this movie?" He says, "No, I only saw a few of the Russians." And they came up to the door. They said, "Hi, John." They never knew who I was.
Wow, nice. That's awesome.
Amazing. And that night after the screening, there was a dinner in the cafeteria there. And I asked Leonard, I said, "Hey, I don't see Gene Roddenberry. Where is he?" "Oh, John, he no longer is a working producer. His name appears on the movie.
Oh.
But he spent so much money on the first movie, they wouldn't allow him to produce The Wrath of Khan."
Wow.
Interesting. Roddenberry was pretty much inactive from then on.
Right.
It's sad.
Wrath of Khan was such a huge hit and much more action oriented, and it put more energy and reinvigorated the franchise, I think.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And one of the reasons was because of Nicholas Meyer, the director. And you actually interviewed Nicholas Meyer.
Yes, for I think the fourth?
Sixth.
For the sixth.
Yes.
Undiscovered Country.
I don't have a lot of memory of that. I was fortunate. He was in Hollywood. I was on a trip there, and they set up an interview for me unexpectedly. And so I got an interview about the making of that film. Yeah.
What was terrific is in your book, The Career That Dripped Horror, you go into details about the interview with Nicholas Meyer and how you were talking to him about the adventure of Star Trek and what was the issue with the first one. And I guess he threw up his hands and said, there was no third act. He was like irritated that it's like, or even number 5. He said, the problem with 5 is, they're on search for God. They don't actually find God. What's the deal here?
Right.
And it was really, really funny. And he explained how it was so important that Star Trek 6 really have a really great, dynamic, exciting story. Yeah. And what I think was so wonderful was at the end of the film, the film ends as, the Enterprise goes into the distance, and then you see all the autographs of each of the actors who were basically responsible for keeping Star Trek alive for so many years, going to conventions. Sure. And, and it was just a wonderful love letter, I think.
There's a page in my book of all the signed photographs I had from the Star Trek cast.
Yeah.
And John, I believe you interviewed everybody, didn't you?
Pretty much, right?
Pretty much over the years, yes. I have signed photographs on the wall of my home.
You also interviewed, and I guess she was sort of a friend of the show, one of my favorite Star Trek personalities, Angelique Pettyjohn. From the Gamesters of Triskelion.
What was so unusual about that interview, she was clad in the costume she wore in the
I know.
Wow.
But-
what a great person.
But John, like that, the Gamesters of Triskelion was made in like 1968. This was, I think, 1983 that you were interviewing her.
Yeah.
Not only did she have the same costume, she had the same hairdo, but I'm not exaggerating. When she looked exactly the same, like she stepped off the
Stunning.
set of Triskelion.
Right?
And,
Yeah.
and she also mentioned some things I never knew in your interview, like the fact that she was up for the part of Nova in Planet of the Apes. I didn't know that. I mean, she was great. She talked about her Victorial and Playboy. I mean, that was great.
Yeah, that was, that's another thing Harlan Ellison would have been upset about.
A little hypocritical because I know he liked the ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was interesting too about that is, listeners, if you're interested in seeing this interview, you can, because
Yes.
John does have a YouTube channel called Creature Features 80, and you can go to this where he has a slew of interviews from
Yeah.
Creature Features, and it looks so crisp and clear, and you can
they're
see
nice.
Angelique
They were high
Pettyjohn.
quality. Yeah, they brought the quality up for Frank Gorshin, the comedian,
Yeah. The Riddler.
coming at you, the director of the
Coming at
feature
ya.
film,
Right,
Roger
yeah.
Corman. He came to the studio one time. Also, Leonard Nimoy. He was doing a play in San Francisco, if I could tell you this little story. Leonard Nimoy was doing a play where he was the brother of Vincent van Gogh.
Oh, wow.
It was a one-man show, and I interviewed him for the Chronicle, and then I said, "Can you come on Creature Features?" And he said yes. So I announced he was going to be on the show next week. Well, the following Friday morning, about 12 or 13 fans showed up. They wanted to come in the studio and meet Leonard Nimoy. And so we were all standing outside, and his limousine pulled up, and suddenly, instead of him getting out, it went around to the back of the Channel 2 building. And he came through the back door. And he saw my wife, who was my producer at that time. And he said, "If you don't get rid of those people out front, I'm not going to do the show."
Oh.
Very angry. So she comes looking for me. She says, "John, you got to get rid of those people out there." Leonard Nimoy is all upset. So I found Nimoy, and he explained, "There's a woman standing out there. Every night she comes to my play, and she sits in the front row. She gets a seat right in front of me, and she stares at me and makes these faces, and it's really an embarrassment."
Weird.
So I went out and I told the group, "I'm sorry, we can't let you in. We have a policy of no fans in the studio." Although I did sneak a couple of the guys in
That's nice.
after the woman left. Anyway, and that was the Leonard Nimoy story.
I just wanted to say,
Also
getting
a
back
story
to
about Christopher Lee. He was making a movie in Marin County, and I invited him to be a guest on Creature Features. I had met him when he made The Man with the Golden Gun,
Oh, yeah.
Bond movie. Anyway, he walks into the studio late. He didn't get there when I could explain to him what was going to happen. He came late. I'm already taping an episode, and surrounding me are members of a Star Wars fan club in costumes.
Like, what is
I had
this?
announced that they were building a new set for me because in another week I was going to introduce a new set behind me on Creature Features. So they were carrying lumber and hammers, and I had sound effects of nails being driven, and Christopher Lee stands there and says to my wife, "I don't think I want to be a guest on this kind of a show."
Oh.
So he turns around to leave. And as he goes to the door, over the door is a TV screen that shows you what's being presented. And I'm introducing a Ray Bradbury interview. And he stops and he watches the complete 10-minute interview. And the lights come on. I'm all finished with that segment. And he turns to my wife and says, "Well, if it's good enough for Ray Bradbury, I guess it's good enough for me.
Ah,
No.
Nice.
Stayed for the interview because I had all kinds of material about his past as a horror star.
But we can thank Ray Bradbury
If he had
now.
left, what would I have done?
Yeah, well, also that shows like I like to always think that Monster Party too. When we have people on, we know our stuff. We've done our research, and obviously Christopher Lee saw that. And you, John, you're not just some interview off the street who doesn't know anything about the genre. You know your stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny, John, because there are times, and we've seen plenty of examples, where there's some interviewer whose job is to interview a celebrity, and they really have no idea what the celebrity has done, or their film or TV backgrounds or anything like that. And sometimes it's embarrassing. But you have always known your stuff, and that's why I loved watching you as a kid.
One of the things I learned early as a writer at the Chronicle, be prepared to ask some offbeat questions.
Right.
For
Yes.
example, Lloyd Bridges.
Yeah.
One of the first things I said to him, when I was only 11 years old, I really enjoyed the Robert L. Lippert low-budget feature you made, Little Bighorn, where he's a cavalry officer trying to warn Custer that the Indians are coming. Anyway, he looked at me and said, "You remember that old movie?" And from then on, we got along just great. We had a wonderful time talking about all the different films he had made. Well, I would go to the Chronicle library and look up. There would be clips about a certain individual if he were a star. And I would discover a lot of material. And of course, I was a movie fan. I wrote 6 creature feature movie guides.
Right.
yeah.
But I grew up going to the movies from the time I was 4 years old. My father, we lived in Oakland at the time. We would come across the Bay Bridge, and we would go to the Telenews Theater. We would see the latest newsreels about World War II. And right next door was a small theater that played low-budget Western films and crime films. And we would go there. And so I developed a strong interest in Westerns. Weren't many horror films in those days. It didn't start until a little later in the into the 50s with The Thing from Another World.
Oh, yeah. Howard Hawks.
The Day the Earth Stood
Classics.
Still.
Yeah.
Some other classic films, Anyway, I would eventually discover those.
Do you still enjoy Westerns, John?
Yes, I do. In fact, I have a collection at home of spaghetti Westerns.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse the expression. That were made in Italy and France.
Sure.
I love
A
those.
lot of wonderful terrain there that they would film these films at. Of course, Clint Eastwood's career started when he made 3 films there.
Yep. Sergio Leone.
Sergio Leone was the director, and he had just finished Rawhide, this TV series, and was invited over there to make films. Became a director, Dirty Harry, Magnum Force, and I was able to do 5 interviews with him. They're in my book.
Wow.
And it's shot up Hollywood.
Now, for that book, did you talk to him about his great experience working on Revenge of the Creature and talking about the rat that was eaten by the cat or something like that? Because
Wait a minute, you're talking
Clint
about
Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
One of
he
his
was
early
in
roles.
He was in Tarantula as
Tarantula.
As an airport.
was he in the creature from the
No,
Black
Revenge
Rabbit?
of the Creature. He has a great moment with
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he has that great moment with John Agar, who's got the big smile, and he goes, "It's my belief that rat is actually inside that cat." And he said, and Agar goes, "Well, did you check everything?" And Clint Eastwood goes, "Well, yes." And he puts his hand in his pocket and takes out the rat. He goes, "How did it get in there?" And I thought that great performance.
Yeah, Clint went
what
on to
got
do so
him.
many different kinds of movies.
Yeah. But you got to interview Clint Eastwood then.
Yeah, 5 times.
Nice.
twice during the making of Dirty Harry in San Francisco. And then I went down to Monterey, Carmel. Remember he
Right.
He was the mayor. Yeah.
That's right.
And he owned a restaurant there, and we had dinner. And he had just made a Western that won Academy Awards.
Wow.
What was it called? Was it
Is that the Unforgiven?
Yeah. 1991,
Right.
I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, if we could go back to science fiction really quickly, I was introduced to the classic Flash Gordon serials by watching them on Creature Features. That was like they put that in between the two movies.
Oh, and Bob Wilkens was playing Captain
Cosmic, yes.
That's right.
But I believe you got a chance to interview Buster Crabbe,
Yes.
who played Flash Gordon.
Yes, we appeared together at a show,
Mm-hmm.
and we did an episode. Or I guess I did an interview for the Chronicle, because this was before Creature Features. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was also before...
Also, with Max von Sydow, who played in the Flash Gordon movie of 1980. Yeah.
That was great.
Wow.
seeing
Full
that, 'cause,
circle.
Yeah, you don't see Max von Sydow often talking about sci-fi and I loved him talking about, kind of basing Ming off of Mephistopheles, and Rasputin. I mean, it's just great hearing, you're sitting with Max von Sydow. It's awesome.
Yeah. That was at Ghirardelli Square. We were sitting outside. And then he came over and did Creature Features. We did an episode on for TV.
That was
That's
so
awesome.
great. And I believe, wasn't that before he was on Buck Rogers, Sean?
Buster Crabbe, you mean?
Yeah. Buster Crabbe.
Yeah, I think that was around that time probably. Yeah, right.
That was in the early 60s, I think.
Or late for 80s, it was
Late, the
Buck
80s.
Rogers. The new Buck Rogers, the new
The
TV
Flash
show.
Gordon things serials were made, in the late 30s and 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
No, but John, you've talked to people with Star Trek, but you also talked to a lot of people in Star Wars.
Yes, in 1980, The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh,
I was invited to the world premiere, and I got to interview most of the stars. It was interviews that were done at a theater in Los Angeles.
mm-hmm.
It was not done at Creature Features,
Right.
but I was able to come back with interviews with oh boy,
It was Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher.
Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Peter Mayhew, David Prowse, who played Darth Vader,
Yeah.
and Gary Kurtz, the producer.
What I always found interesting about Gary Kurtz is, as a producer for such a big budget project and with everything going on, he seemed like such a mild-mannered guy. He was very soft-spoken.
Yeah, I don't have too much memory of that.
Probably because that's why.
Very fast. It was all recorded very fast.
I think that's why George Lucas liked him, because he was kind of quiet in the back, kind of a producer.
Yeah.
He wasn't one of these producers that tried to take over a lot of control and was like a big blowhard, or which reminds
he
me.
believed in what the producers wanted, and he delivered. He delivered well.
Did you enjoy your conversation with Carrie Fisher?
Yes, and yeah, that all worked out very well. It was very nice.
So Gary Kurtz was kind of a mild-mannered producer, but my understanding is maybe one of your most difficult interviews might have been with another producer.
Irwin Allen.
Yeah. There we go. Here we go.
He was very
to us.
successful as a filmmaker. He made movies that were
Sure.
Huge.
Poseidon Adventure.
One of my favorites.
Towering Inferno.
The film he made in San Francisco about a hotel burning down.
Towering Inferno.
Yeah.
Towering Inferno.
But he also did Land of the Giants and Lost in
For
Space.
television, he did Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Land of the Giants, Time Tunnel,
Yeah.
and I covered all of those through the 60s. And finally, I was invited to go interview him.
You were invited.
Yes, they called me up and said, "John, we saw you've been covering all of the TV shows." So I went to his office in Hollywood, and we sat down, and the interview lasted for 18 minutes. And what happened was he made the comment about Ray Bradbury. He said Ray Bradbury never wrote movies. And I said, I beg your pardon. But Ray did. It came from outer space. He did a draft of that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of the original, the film used of his script.
Moby Dick.
But
He did.
and Irwin Allen got very angry. He says, "What are you talking about? That's not true."
It's like, why diss Ray Bradbury?
I
Like,
interviewed Ray, and he talks about his movies, and he says, "Get out of my office." Oh, at the end of 18 minutes, I climbed into the time tunnel.
like it never happened.
Don't go back to that year ever again. No.
For listeners, John has a great section in his book explaining this incident with Irwin Allen, and you read it and it's like, are you kidding? He just comes off as like a very pompous, arrogant guy who's so full of himself. And yes, give the guy credit. He did big movies, big things. Yeah. But come on.
I have the interview right here from your book. And at one point he says, you say he's also written at least, referring to Bradbury, he's also written at least 2 Alfred Hitchcock shows. And his answer is, I refuse to believe that.
Wow. What world is he living in?
See, John, that has nothing to do with you. You're trying your best. Well, I mean,
polite all the way through. Polite and professional.
You're lovely.
Professional all the way through.
Yeah. Well,
never know. Yeah.
It happens once in a while.
Yeah. But see, that's one of the things I really respect about your interviewing style. You make the person that you're interviewing comfortable, but at the same time, you're not adverse to asking them a difficult question. For example, you had Robert Bloch. You were doing an interview with Robert Bloch, and you're very complimentary about his work, but at the same time, at one point, you refer to someone who said that maybe his work recently was not up to par with what he did in the past.
That was the editor of a magazine.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He asked me if I would ask Ray. I was going to go to his home, Robert Bloch's home. And he said, if you go there, would you please tell him that I think he hasn't been doing all that well, So during my interview with Bob, the first time we met, I did ask him the question, and he responded with it in his own way. And that started a relationship with Robert Bloch. I stayed in touch with him. And in 1984, Creature Features was still on the air. I went to his home and said, hey, I have at home a collection of pulp magazines called Fantastic Adventures from the 40s, and you did a series of stories about Lefty Theep, who is a racetrack tout who gets involved in Fantastic Adventures in all of the short stories you wrote, and I'd like to put together a book collection of those stories. And Bob said, you probably won't make any money, but go ahead and do it. So we did, and I think the book came out in 87, I think. Maybe it was 86, and did pretty well.
That's great. Yeah,
I still have a few copies at home. I think I have 20 or 30 copies, but it sold, did better than Bob thought it would do.
Right. That's great.
Anyway, Bob came on the show, and he said during our interview, he says, I have the heart of a small child. And sitting on the table next to him, my wife had bought a heart.
A rubber heart.
And it's floating in this glass. And he takes the cover off the glass, and we see this heart in there.
Yeah.
I have the heart of a small child.
I love that interview, John, on Creature Features with Bob, because he talks a lot about that was a time when Universal was making a sequel to Psycho, but at the same time, Robert Bloch was writing his own Psycho 2 book, which was unrelated, because he found out that he actually didn't have the rights to the first film, so it allowed Universal to make their own movie. But it was interesting, him talking about kind of violence at the time in slasher films and how horror was changing. It was really interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
He was also pretty okay with hearing something negative about his work and then being very confident in his ability. So
Not
he was
angry
able.
at me. He was
Yeah, not at all.
angry.
Right.
That was the amazing thing. I thought, oh boy, this will probably piss him off, But no.
Yeah, not at all.
And you know what? I would go to Bob's home and I would take photographs of him at the typewriter. He'd go out and lay on next to his swimming pool.
Right.
He'd have a magazine, Fantastic Adventure magazine. And in The Career That Dripped with Horror, there's a photograph as his story interview begins of him holding, I think it's a magazine, and he's got this terrified look on his face. Was it Psycho that he was holding? I can't remember.
But that's another thing about
he was really wonderful.
But John, it's another great thing about your book because you have all these great candid photos of a lot of the people that you interviewed.
Yeah.
Now, could you talk a bit about, so back in the late 60s, there was a big TV show that everyone loved with a superhero, and that was Batman. And you
Adam West.
Yeah, Adam West and Burt Ward.
Adam West, isn't it unusual? He became a close friend.
Really?
Really?
I
Wow.
first interviewed him before Batman came on the air.
That was before Batman, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was January of, when did the series come on the air?
66, I think.
66, yeah.
And we did the interview, and then I went on, it was at 20th Century Fox. One day I went there, and there was some kind of event taking place. And the fans that were gathered, they had the car out in the public.
Mm-hmm.
And his
The
co-star,
Batmobile.
who played Robin,
Burt Ward, yeah.
Ward.
Burt Ward, he was there, and I interviewed Burt Ward, and that's in the book. Only I satirized it. I turned it into a movie script.
Yes.
Yes, right.
Very entertaining. Someone should have
And
filmed that.
Adam West, I'd written a movie script called The Playpen, and it was a story about how Adolf Hitler had formed a group of military people to kidnap American children, bring them to Germany, put them in the Playpen, a place somewhere in the mountains or something where they would fight the young Germans.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Like a battle royale kind of thing.
Oh,
And
my
that would
God.
train the young Germans how to fight. They'd
Oh,
be actual
wow.
weapons with ammunition, and
Mm-hmm.
both sides would fight it out.
Right.
And he wanted to, Adam West wanted to make that movie, but he couldn't sell it. And he spent a couple of years.
Was that the script, Sarge? Was that it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was called.
Yeah, but so you were good friends with Adam West, and so you got to see the whole rise of the whole Batman craze, and
Yeah.
the ladies just loved Adam and Burt, and
Oh, yes.
but then you mentioned in the book that it was tough the years after Batman.
You mean for Adam West?
Yeah, for Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made a crime series. I interviewed him one more time. A crime series. I forget the title. It's in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I
But
took some photographs of him at that luncheon, and it didn't last very long. I think it was only on for maybe one season, and then they canceled it.
Right.
I will say though, for someone like Adam West, though, it was great that people still loved his voice, and he could do a lot of voices, and then became a voice on that show Family Guy.
Oh,
One of our good friends and a guest of the show, Wally Wingert, who does voices for that show, he was a huge Batman fan. It was a huge thrill for him to actually do voices with Adam West, and they became friends. And he said that Adam was just terrific, was just a lovely guy. And I think he signed just about everything, every Batman thing that he had owned. But Adam was a lovely person.
Hey, there's a story about Ray Bradbury I'd like to share.
Please.
Please.
He came to San Francisco in 1983 at the Fairmont Hotel, and I filmed a three-part series of interviews. I believe, is that on YouTube? I think it might be.
You do have some of the Ray Bradbury interview there.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see. I do. Anyway, I did a three-part interview, and then we went across the street to a restaurant on California Street there. And we're having dinner, and his wife Maggie is with us, and my wife is here too. And she puts the menu down in front of Ray and says, "Ray, I want you to order this." And Ray goes, "That's very expensive. A bottle of champagne for $100?" He says, "You're going to order that." So Ray orders it. And we have this bottle of champagne for dinner. They're finished with dinner. They're going to bring dessert. She puts the menu in front of Ray again and says, "Okay, Ray, bottle number 2." And he orders a second bottle, $200 for the champagne. And we decided, my wife and I decided, she must be angry at the Walt Disney Studio about something. Because they're the ones who produced Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Yes.
It's an important film for Ray. He says one of the main characters was based on his father.
Yes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's about his own childhood. You know?
Yeah,
It's like two halves of him.
Yeah.
The two boys are like two different aspects of him.
Yes.
I think that movie had a trouble production. It didn't quite come out the way it was intended, and it didn't do well. I do like a lot of the elements in it, but I don't think it was the
Didn't
movie
do
that
well.
could.
It did okay. It did okay. But the thing that I love, John, is the first time I saw Ray Bradbury speak, it was like the heavens opened. He was just so inspirational. He was, and just to tell his story about where he came from and the stuff that he wrote. And it was so wonderful. When you interviewed him, I think it was like one of the first times you mentioned in the book that he didn't like 2001, which surprised me.
Oh, yeah, that was just right after the film came out.
Oh, okay.
He was in this huge office. You walked down a flight of stairs, and there was this big office, and there he had a desk, and he was at the typewriter.
Right.
He was writing.
That might have been.
I can tell you what he was writing in the story.
It might have been around the Ray Bradbury Theater time when there was that series on, the Ray Bradbury Theater. And, you know, he had done so many things. He had written so many screenplays and stuff that he actually got his own show. But I was surprised that he didn't like 2001. And I liked your...
He liked parts of it.
He liked parts of it. But what I liked is he says, here's this brilliant guy, and he goes, "Can anyone explain to me what happens at the end?"
That's kind of the point, though.
Yeah, it's for interpretation.
No, because Matt, I like that. Yes, I want to know. I want the explanation.
I know you do.
That's what I like. So I'm like Ray Bradbury.
Well,
You're just like him, Larry.
Yeah, very much.
I mean, I think if I look at you, I see Ray Bradbury.
The amazing thing about Ray, from my point of view, we were sitting there doing this interview, and I was trying to probe his mind to get his, let's go way, way down. How do you write your stories? What motivates you to be an author?
Yeah.
What are some of the issues of writing a movie rather than a short story?
Right.
And he really allowed himself to go plunging downward to the depths of his mind, which I don't know if anybody else ever accomplished that.
Yeah, that kind of deep dive.
But I thought in the new book, The Career That Dripped with Horror, which, by the way, the fans can order a signed copy from me by going to stanleybooks.net.
Nice.
You can get an autographed copy.
You got it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Doing it now.
If you're tuning in now, I already have my copy.
As do all of us.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
What's interesting, John, is there's like 3-4 decades of interviews, but it's not just interviews like you wrote stuff down. There's visual stuff. And I mean, all of us, James, Matt, Sean, and I, we all grew up, in the late 60s, early 70s into the 80s. And you cover all of these amazing celebrities who were in a lot of these wonderful films that we love so much.
I estimate I interviewed around 800 individuals.
Wow. I actually think you did more than that.
I typed up a list A to Z.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I went back and counted the names, it was in the neighborhood of 800.
Wow.
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, you now have to add us to that list.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
But of course,
yeah.
we're interviewing him. So.
Yes.
I know.
But also,
God forbid we have some fun with this.
but John, also, a lot of those celebrities down the years that you interviewed aren't with us anymore, and that's why to me, you have truly been the steward of horror and sci-fi pop culture for several generations. And like I said, you interview people that normally, maybe wouldn't be interviewed about a particular movie or TV show, and you exposed, a lot of those personalities to new generations, which is great. You really kept the flame alive.
Well, that's a great way to look at it. I hadn't quite thought of it that way. Yeah.
Riding on the back of the Batmania from the 60s show, you also had an interview with Van Williams from the Green Hornet, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, that was on the I was in the studio. They were doing scenes where the characters were in a car, and so there was film running in the back.
Yeah, the screen behind him. Yeah.
Bruce Lee was playing Kato, and Van Williams played the Green Hornet, and Van Williams blew his lines about 5 times in a row.
Right.
Really?
Kato and Bruce Lee, Kato in the front seat, would turn and tell him what his line was. He memorized the line, and he knew it better than Van Williams.
Wow.
Yeah. Knew the whole script.
That's great.
And when they finished shooting that, they finally got it right.
And of course, you also got to interview Bruce Lee.
Yes. When the scene ended, he got out of the car. I got out. I was standing nearby. And I walked over and I told him I was from San Francisco. And he had spent some time there. And we had a very nice interview.
Nice.
It wasn't very long, maybe 10 minutes. And then years later, I met his son.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Remember his son?
Sure, Brandon.
Yes, from the Crow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Brandon Lee had made an action film, and I interviewed him for the Chronicle. And when I told him I had met his father, he says, "Oh my God, tell me everything he said and did." And
Really?
Oh, that's so neat.
he wanted to know everything that I could remember about his dad.
Wow. That's
So
cool.
we had a wonderful interview, and the combination of those two stories is in the book.
Yes.
In 1992, he was making, Brandon was making a feature film, and he was accidentally shot and
Yes.
killed.
Yes.
The Crow.
The Crow, yes.
With Brandon Lee, when you were discussing with him the things that you talked about with Bruce Lee, and you were mentioning the fact that Bruce knew all the lines in the script, he seemed to be very impressed with that. This level of professionalism that his father had it's incredible.
Yeah, yep, definitely.
So going back to the 80s, though,
Memorable moment,
I noticed throughout the years, you also got to interview people before they really exploded. One of the interviews I was surprised with was for the film Alien. You got to talk to Ridley Scott.
Oh, Ridley Scott.
Yeah, and this is, let's face it, that was really the film that put him on the map.
Oh,
I mean, he had done stuff before, but Alien is just blew up, and you have a great interview with him. And he talks a bit,
At the cinema shop.
Yeah.
That was run by Dan Ferris for many years. He would allow me to bring a celebrity in, and he had a room. He could put posters up on the wall, like Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
Movies he was involved with, or whatever visuals he could find. And yes, Ridley Scott, we did an interview there, and that was really great.
You mentioned that he really gave a lot of credit to H.R. Giger with the design of the actual alien.
Yes.
And if you think about it, up until that time, we think of aliens with, just like, the big brain head and
big eyes
stuff. And this was so unique, so different.
Yeah. This was a film that set a whole new standard for sci-fi horror films.
Mm-hmm.
It really did. Anyway, there's a lengthy interview in my book about the history of the film and my interview with Ridley Scott.
And then around the same time, a little later, a few years later, the big muscle man himself, you got to speak with Arnold Schwarzenegger on for Conan the Barbarian.
You know what happened? Carl Malden was making Streets of San Francisco, and we had become good friends. In fact, my wife would go shopping with his wife.
Really?
And he called me one day at the Chronicle. He says, John, we have this unusual actor making an episode with us. And I thought, this would really make an interesting article for you.
So it was Arnold Schwarzenegger guest starring on...
Yes, so I met
San
Arnold
Francisco?
Schwarzenegger at a restaurant along the Embarcadero. And we're sitting there, I'm starting the interview, and this beautiful waitress walks up. And she says, I'm awfully sorry, Arnold, but I won't be able to come up to your room tonight.
Oh, darn.
Well, the hotel has a strict rule about that kind of thing. He looked like he had been totally insulted. And he looked at her and he said, here's what you have to do. I will go up to my room. I will open the window. I will put a rope down so it falls to the ground. You will walk up to the rope, grab it, and I will pull you up the rope and bring you into my room and close the window.
Whoa!
Staring at him like, is this guy crazy or what?
See, when I try that, it never works.
Anyway, that was part of the interview. And he did this episode. People didn't know who he was yet.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he had made one film. But in 82, Conan the Barbarian, his first major feature film,
Right.
Yeah.
was released. And he came and we did interviews. But I went to L.A. to see the film and to interview him at the studio. And he told this story about how hard it was to play Conan. He had to wear this heavy equipment.
Yeah.
Right.
And just climbing up on a horse was very difficult to do.
Probably for the horse, too. The guy's huge.
Yeah, with all that weight. Yeah.
Yeah.
John, did he remember you? Oh, yeah, you're from...
Yeah. He remembered me, yeah. This was in 82. When was he governor? In the late 80s?
No,
It was like
no.
90s,
Much later, yeah.
early 2000s, yeah.
I'm sorry? When?
I think like much later, like in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, 90, okay. Yeah.
When you interviewed him for Conan, did he say, I want you to interview me, but I want you to climb up this ladder to my room?
The only way I'll do it.
The only way
He
I'll
told
do
about
the
how difficult it was to make the movie physically.
yeah, I can
It was
imagine.
really
Right.
hard. He liked
but
the director. He thought the director did a wonderful job of telling him what to do and how to do it.
Right,
No,
right.
Those
but
are good
he was-
movies.
Here's a big guy. He's a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
He's an actor who had to work on his body. But there's another actor that you interviewed who also had to work on his body for his performance, and that was Christopher Reeve for Superman.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. That was great. I was in the cable car going up to go to the Fairmont Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to walk up California to the hotel. Anyway, I'm riding the cable car, and suddenly it dawned on me, my God, I'm on my way to interview Superman. Even though the project we were going to talk about was a TV movie, it had nothing to do with Superman.
Oh, really?
But anyway, it was an excellent interview. And later I got to meet, it's in the book, what's her name?
Oh, Sarah Douglas. Sarah
Right?
Douglas,
Sarah Douglas, yeah.
who actually
She was
played
beautiful.
James
I
Wood-
interviewed her in L.A.
Classy lady.
She was sexy. Oh my God!
Yes, she
Oh,
was.
my
Telling me-
goodness, yeah.
She was
Yeah,
one of the three
there was
villains.
someone before her who played the part, but she didn't wear her panties as she flew across the top. of the
Wow.
That's a
Wow.
whole different movie.
Interesting.
room. Yeah,
Right.
She
It's
was
super, but it's a
really
different kind of
funny.
super.
She wanted to be a guest on the show, but she can never quite find a time for her.
You know, Matt was on a radio show where Christopher Reeve was present,
Oh,
and I
boy.
guess he was like a little irritated or something. But I always wondered, did Christopher Reeve feel that, I don't know if he was really typecast, but he made the perfect Superman.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah.
And I know he tried to do other things, and he had some success, but did he talk to you about that?
Well, that's what he was doing at the time in the early 90s.
Mhm.
I believe, was it 3 years later that he fell off a horse? And
I
was
believe so,
sure-
yes.
Shortly after the
Yeah, yeah.
Superman
the
4.
rest of his life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he had to sit in a wheelchair from then on. You could
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tragic.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. Yeah.
You also interviewed one of my favorite actors of all time, Roddy McDowell, and you were able to interview him in his ape makeup when he was doing the TV show.
It was a short-lived TV series version of the film series.
Yeah. I loved
Hey,
it
I
as a
watched
kid.
every
Eight or
episode.
9 Planet of the Apes movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was doing the TV version.
And I always heard he liked playing Galen, the character in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was having a great time. He was.
My understanding too is at that time, because we had heard from another friend of ours who was an ape expert, that in the first films, they would have to paint his hands and add the hair. And I guess for the TV series, they sped it up. It was gloves. They were special gloves he just got to put in, which made the makeup time a lot less. They had
Yeah,
mask
TV.
That helps, yeah.
for-
Yeah.
yeah, it's TV. You know, and
Yeah.
probably the
Remember
most.
about Roddy. He was a collector of movies. He just loved motion pictures
Yep.
and I guess TV series, and was a real expert on the history of Hollywood. He really was.
Yes. We've always heard that from everybody who's
Yes.
met him.
We had the director of Fright Night, Tom Holland, on our show,
Oh,
and he told us so many stories of going over to Roddy's place for dinner, and there'd be all these other actors, and Roddy would just spend hours just regaling them with all these stories of classic Hollywood. It's just incredible.
I guess Tom had asked Roddy, Roddy, you should write a book on all this. And Roddy never wanted to because he felt he didn't want to betray the confidence of all these actors. But the
Right.
stories that were told, I mean, so many people loved Roddy McDowell.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I'm just, what a thrill for you to interview him with his ape outfit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, there was another
Once in a
actor.
lifetime.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was another actor on that show who was actually in classic Star Trek who you interviewed, and that was Mark Leonard.
Yeah.
Mark
yeah.
Leonard, who
Oh,
played,
right.
yes, who played Spock.
Yeah, Mark Leonard. I'm trying to remember.
In that interview, which I always loved about Mark Leonard's career as far as Star Trek go, is that he played all 3 classic Star Trek alien villains, a Romulan, a Vulcan, and a Klingon. I mean, and he played all of them great.
And also the interview that you can see on your Creature Features 80 channel on YouTube. What I loved about that interview is when Mark talks, he's got that same great voice that is just, it's just,
Sarah.
well, actually,
Yeah, right. Larger than life actor.
total larger
Yeah.
than life. And just watching that interview, John, was so neat. I'm so glad you got him on the show.
I'm
With
gonna have to
Angelique
go look
Pettyjohn.
at it. I haven't seen it for a while.
Oh, you
Yeah, it's
have to
great.
watch it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a lot of your interviews are snapshots in time because I also really liked it was early 80s. You interviewed Richard Benjamin and Paula Prentice for Saturday the 14th.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed that movie.
Features, yeah.
It's so goofy and silly, but it's great. It's great seeing them together talking about working together as husband and wife. And, I mean, that was another example. Like, where do you see that? Them talking about that movie,
Yeah, right. It was great.
Now, John, what's really neat is you not only talk to people who are in science fiction and fantasy and horror, but you also talk to people that are just big in Hollywood.
Jimmy Stewart was one of my favorites.
Jimmy-
I got to interview him twice.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Jimmy did some Hitchcock movies. Could you tell me a bit
Well, I
about
was going
him?
to say the second meeting with him, and by the way, he lived in Beverly Hills, just a few houses away from Lucille Ball.
Oh,
Wow.
really?
Wow.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart was just a wonderful. Yeah, he was in a number of Hitchcock movies.
Yeah.
I think The Man Who Knew Too Much and
Rope,
Vertigo. Yep.
Vertigo's my favorite.
Vertigo, oh, that's one of my favorites.
One
Yeah,
of the
me too.
best.
Hitchcock made in San Francisco in 1957.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But But would Jimmy just be really just, oh, John, have some coffee? Or so was he just...
I don't even know who that is.
Okay,
that you're
that's
doing
my
right
Jimmy
now.
Stewart impersonation, okay? No, but was he just a lovely person? Did he offer you tea or...
Biscuits?
No, I just want to know how nice Jimmy Stewart was when you did the interviews with him.
He had some dogs in the backyard when I first got there.
Uh-huh.
And he came over and sat down, and God, he was talking about all the elements of his career.
Mm-hmm.
He was a bomber pilot.
Yeah, war hero.
Yeah.
He was a war hero, a B-25, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he told me a lot of stories about that.
He did?
Yeah.
Because, John, that's amazing because a lot of people said that he didn't talk about that very much. He tried to keep that different. So you must have brought something out.
He told me how they kind of got a little high, I guess, on some booze. He flew his airplane where the control tower was. He flew over it. Like a plane never did. A plane would never.
Right, yeah.
Too close.
Everybody was pissed off at him, but go on to your next mission, Jimmy. It's okay.
Yeah. Sleep it off first, though.
Right.
But Jimmy Stewart is...
when he got back from the war,
Yeah.
it didn't do well at the box office.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's true. At the time, it did not do well when it came out. Right.
Yeah, didn't do well at all.
Bizarre.
When television came and they began running it on TV, it became one of the most popular movies of all time.
Yep. Holiday.
I remember
like a Christmas
watching,
classic.
Yeah, and I remember watching The Tonight Show where Johnny Carson said that is his favorite Jimmy Stewart movie.
Yeah.
And he always watches it at every holiday.
Well, Harvey was another one that I think was popular.
Oh,
Genius.
Harvey the Rabbit.
Genius.
Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, but wouldn't it have been better, John, if the real giant rabbit kind of appeared? You know, and,
Nope, not at all.
No, well, okay, I think.
And don't forget, Jimmy Stewart have made some wonderful Western films.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Anthony Mann.
Winchester
He could play-
76.
Yeah.
Yep.
He could play any
Perfect
role.
for the Westerns.
Yeah, any genre.
Yeah. And the way he could go from, especially within the confines of It's a Wonderful Life, how he goes from doing some great comedic scenes to just the depths of drama. What an amazing talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, very definitely.
Well,
was,
you've interviewed Hollywood royalty, but you've also interviewed maybe seedy side too. Could you tell me a bit about Mae West? I think you interviewed Mae West.
Yeah, she lived in an apartment where she'd been in L.A. She'd been there for years. And my wife and I went up to see her and knocked on the door. The door opens and this big tall man is standing there. And I noticed that around his waist is a holster. There's a pistol in the holster. It turns out that he's a bodyguard for Mae West.
Wow.
Wow.
All day long, anybody knocks on the door, he's the one who greets you. And you make sure you can see the gun.
Right.
He doesn't try to hide it or anything. Yeah, and it was a really nice interview. She was very humorous.
Was she all dressed up? Did she put on the act, John? Did she go, well,
No, I
John.
don't remember what she was wearing, unfortunately.
Did you come up and see her?
Anytime. Come up and see me anytime. Well, what happened was she made a feature film, and then I think this was 1980,
Yeah.
and she was going to appear at a theater on Market Street.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to premiere this film,
In San Francisco,
and
yeah.
she was going to appear on stage and be interviewed by, I don't remember who. So my wife and I went to the theater, and unfortunately, someone came out to announce that she wasn't feeling very well and she wasn't able to appear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In fact, I don't think she even came to San Francisco.
Oh wow.
And that was, and she died shortly after.
Right. Yeah, that may have been Myra Breckenridge. May have been the movie.
Oh,
that
yeah,
she was
right.
promoting.
Sextet, perhaps?
Or Sextet.
Or
yeah.
Sextet?
She made a couple of those towards the end of her
What's her
life.
last movie?
Well, it was either Sextet or Myra Breckenridge. Well, those are the two movies she made at the end of towards the end of her career.
Yeah, it was a very last one she would have been in.
Right.
When I first moved to
Breckenridge, I think it was the other one.
Sextet. Okay.
When I first moved to LA, John, one of my neighbors in the apartment complex was this. He was an older dude, but he was like a former bodybuilder, and we became friends. And he told me that he was one of those bodybuilder guys who would be in her shows, and he would act as a bodyguard for her sometimes. Yeah,
That's right.
It was like
The man we met, he was into kung fu and all those unusual action.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you're Mae West, you need that kind of protection.
yeah.
At the time.
And along those
Makes a
same
good
lines,
story, you know.
John,
Yeah.
along those same lines.
Don't worry, the guy won't shoot you.
Along those same lines, John, in San Francisco, there was a very famous or notorious woman named Carol Doda.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
And can you tell us
I
who
only
Carol
met
Doda
Carol
was?
once. I had made a few documentaries back in the around 2010. We did a documentary about Eddie Muller, who is the king of noir, the
Yes.
czar of noir.
He does Turner
He's on
Classic
Turner
Movies.
Classic Movies.
Oh, yeah, right.
He's
He's a host.
Right.
Yeah, he's great. He's
He'll
great.
be on tonight around 9:00. And
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, he's
always
terrific.
watched the show. We were good friends when I worked at the Chronicle. So I had a cameraman who helped me make these documentaries. I also did one about me as TV horror host. Anyway, we decided maybe we could do a short, maybe a film of some kind about the topless movement of San Francisco of the 1960s.
It's historical,
Right.
right, Matt? Historical.
Sure. Condor Room.
We met for dinner.
Really?
She was working she had some kind of shop, clothing shop she might have been working in.
This is Carol
Anyway,
Doda.
She came and had dinner with us. And we said, we'd like to photograph you, film you, and make this documentary. And she shook her head and said, no, I don't want to have anything to do with my career, the past of my career.
Really?
We never got, the thing never got produced.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That would have
So she
been
was trying to
fascinating.
refine.
One of the things we haven't talked about, when I was doing creature features, I would do mini movies.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
For short films, I would get out of the studio and go somewhere to a location. We'll go to we went to a cemetery one time with the director and the tall man.
Yes.
Phantasm.
Phantasm.
Angus Scrimm.
And Don Coscarelli.
Yeah.
Yes, and he was a director. And we met at a cemetery, and we did a scene where the tall man throws me into the back of a hearse. And then I'm sitting in the back of the hearse, and I start to ask questions. And then we cut to them facing me. What we did, they were in a hurry to catch an airplane, so I would just ask them the questions. We photographed them. Then we did the reverse shots of me asking.
After they got out of the hearse, yeah.
And then there was a scene at the end of it where he opens the rear door and throws me out.
Nice.
That was the first of many movies. We did one about not a zombie, but a mummy. The mummy rises. We're trying to get a mummy to wake up. And
Yeah, but you also,
great.
one of the first ones I remember
I did
was
a
with
Sherlock Holmes thing
You did-
where I went to a hotel room,
and Chuck Norris.
Sherlock room,
Remember-
and there's a beautiful girl there, and I'm helping her solve. Somebody stole something and of course,
It's a mystery to solve.
figures it all out, you know.
Right.
You also did one with Chuck Norris where he actually grabs you and throws you to the floor pad. And I
That's
thought-
Chuck Norris.
yeah, Chuck Norris, and that
That was great. Yeah, we did
that
a
he
number
was
of
doing.
things together. His career was just starting when we did an interview at the Cook Sewell One in San Francisco. We had unconscious bodies all over the mat. I would walk up, and he's working out with his brother.
Yeah, that was early part of his career, like Good Guys Wear Black and The Octagon.
Right.
Anyway, he turned around and grabbed me, and I said, "I'm John Stanley, Creature Feature." Oh, okay.
Now, John, I do have one question. I know that I've seen every once in a while you had your son Russ in the background of some of these films, and
Yes.
there's a photograph in your book where Ray Harryhausen is talking to Bob Wilkins, and you're there, and
Yeah.
your son is like fallen asleep. And I thought to myself, what? How can you fall asleep with Ray Harryhausen right here? I wanted to bitch to your son about that. It's like, what are you doing? You should
boys will be boys.
Bob,
You know.
That's when Bob Wilkens was hosting.
Oh,
the show.
He's
I was
falling
there to do an
asleep.
interview with him. It's
Bring my dad on.
my Ray Harryhausen material is in the I Was a TV Horror Host book.
Right.
Yeah.
But you interviewed Ray Harryhausen,
Yes,
and
he was
did
a
you-
guest on Creature Features. He did a wonderful interview. Yeah, we played scenes from some of his films.
Yeah.
Mhm.
With the skeletons dueling with him and all of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. John, the one thing I can say is, this book that you wrote is filled with so many interviews of celebrities, and we just scratched the surface here.
There are almost 800 photographs in that.
Yeah.
book, and there's around 100 sketches.
Yeah.
I took all of the sketches from the Creature Feature movie guides. We had a sketch for each letter of the alphabet.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I took all of those, I put them in alphabetical order, and we have 8 pages in the book of just horror sketches. And each one has a letter of the alphabet, and then it's a visual that goes with that letter. If
I also
it's
wanted
a
to point-
zombie, then it's a Z,
Right. I also, John, wanted to point out that one of the interviews you do in Creature Features that you have up on YouTube is with a good friend of ours who has been on Monster Party many times, and that's
right.
Comedian Bobby Slayton. Talking about his collection, like a very young Bobby talking about the creature and the 50s sci-fi. That was really cool to see.
He's a longtime friend of mine because I'm a stand-up comic too, and we worked together a million times. And I love Bobby, and he's a huge monster kid.
He was really great, yeah.
You also had August Rigoni, who we had on our show. Who,
Japanese expert.
talked about Godzilla, and then
He was an expert on Japanese monster movies.
He still is.
I love this guy. Yeah.
When my book came out, he had a book also.
Yes. Mariah?
I'm a horror host back in 2007.
Mhm.
And we appeared together at a Barnes and Noble store.
Mhm.
And he had written a book about Godzilla and he had gone to Japan and interviewed some of the leading directors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
James,
about
was there
Eiji Tsuburaya, the guy who was behind all the special effects of Ultraman and Godzilla, and it's like the definitive work on that subject.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing August at Comic-Con, and I had the book, and it was the first time I was able to see him in years. And I said, I want you to sign my book. James, was there something you wanted to ask John?
Thanks, Larry. Yeah. John, another major horror author you had the opportunity to interview was Stephen King. Do you have any memories of that
in
interview?
the late 70s, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah. And in my book, I have the magazine that his very first short story appeared in. He had signed it for me when we did this interview.
Nice.
Wait, was that the Famous
I
Monsters?
just happened to have a copy of this little magazine, and he signed it for me. And the signature is in the book. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
That would be extremely valuable, I would imagine.
Yeah. He discussed the early stages of his career.
Right.
And boy, he's been through a lot. He's done so many successful books. He was also in an accident. I think he got hurt.
Right.
Yes, pretty badly. Yeah.
Very serious accident.
But recovered.
Yeah, he was laid up for a while,
Yeah.
Yep.
but finally came back.
Well, John, for listeners, if they were interested in getting this book, could you just tell us again, where can they go to get this book?
In order to get a signed copy, because there's a special signature page in the book devoted
Yes.
for a signature, go to stanleybooks.net, okay? And you can also go to YouTube.
Yeah, Creature Features 80.
Yeah.
So think of it, listeners, it's like
Or
Creature
you can
Features
go to
1980. but-
Amazon and you can order my film Nightmare and Blood.
Yes.
think you could, it's been upgraded in quality.
Yeah.
Remastered.
Yeah, Tom Wersch has upgraded it, and it went up on Amazon just recently. Yeah, this year.
Nice.
And what's really cool for listeners, if you missed our last episode with John, John explained that he learned that Kerwin Matthews was in San Francisco at the time, and they were able to get Kerwin Matthews, who played Sinbad.
Kerwin was working in a shop somewhere. And
I believe that was his shop. That was his place in San Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we went there, and we said, would you like to appear in a cameo role? We're going to film a sequence at the Golden Gate Bridge toll plaza. Right next to it was this something that had been torn down, but you still had a wall. Or
Yeah, like ruins kind of a thing, yeah.
And we had a guillotine we had created. And this beautiful girl was up on the guillotine with her head in the cutter. And Kerwin Matthews, dressed up as he was from his science fiction movies, is dueling with Malachi. He's the vampire in Nightmare on Blood.
Right.
And this is a sequence from one of his movies where they're dueling. And so Kerwin worked with us just in that one day.
Well, he worked with you.
You events at the beginning of Nightmare on Blood.
Yes, but John, you directed Kerwin Matthews. That is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I think we might have brought this up in the last time that we had you on the show, but we always talk about how supportive our family members have been, especially our parents. And your dad made the coffin in the movie, if I'm not mistaken, right?
There's a coffin. When Malachi arrives at the movie theater in a hearse, they take a coffin into the lobby, then the lid opens and up rises Malachi the vampire. And my father had designed that,
That is so great.
What a great dad.
Sequence. My dad is a doorman.
Oh, nice.
And John, before we go, I just wanted to say one other thing. In your family, and because this is also in the book, but I thought it was so special, you have a great uncle named George Stanley, and he did He did something that blew me away in classic Hollywood.
Blew me away too.
Can you share that with us?
He created the Oscar, the Academy Award.
Yes.
Way back, I think in 1938 or 39.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Where they started to present it each year.
So for listeners, it's like someone had an idea as to what it would look like, but it was George Stanley who actually constructed it and made it.
Yes.
That's amazing.
That's incredible.
He was a great guy. I only got to meet him one time. He lived in L.A. He was, I believe, retired at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the theater in Hollywood that's open?
Man's Chinese?
Grumman's Chinese?
Grumman's Chinese? Grumman's Chinese Theater?
No. It almost looks like a sports arena, but it's...
Oh, Hollywood Bowl?
Yeah, the Hollywood Bowl.
Yes.
He created the things that stand in front of it.
Really? The archway?
It's a photograph.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
He designed a lot of things in Los Angeles. Yes.
Wow.
Well, John, you are related to greatness, but also I want to say, sir, you are great to us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been fun. It's been challenging. I appreciate all of you being here. Not a single one of you fell asleep during the...
No.
Impossible.
You need a no-dose tablet.
No. No, but John, I could speak for all of us. We love you so much.
Yes, we do.
Such a big part of our life. And
you're keeping helping
to keep science fiction, fantasy, and horror
keeping
alive.
The monster kid spirit alive.
That's right.
So, John, guys, what do you say we raise our glasses
and
give a toast to John Stanley and to all of the celebrities he's interviewed?
Pure vodka.
Yes. Party on.
Keep America
Here's
strong.
to Monster Party and all those who make it so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Time for a listener shout out.
Shout out. Shout out. I want to interview this shout out. That makes no sense at all.
Well, this is a special shout out because I want to thank everybody who stopped by our booth at Monster Palooza in Pasadena.
Yes.
Old friends, new friends, filmmakers, podcasters, toy collectors,
Everyone.
makeup artists.
Yeah. Anyone that's
families,
really worth talking about.
cosplayers. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a nonstop parade.
And I want to do an additional thanks to our friend Ted Haynes, foam fabric extraordinaire.
Oh,
He brought us over
Ted
these beautiful
Haynes.
glow Frankenstein figures that he made. Limited
Oh my
edition.
gosh, amazing.
Very grateful. Also want to shout out to Vera Vanguard, who is a filmmaker we didn't get to talk to, but she's very excited about her new feature, which is called Apocalypse Love. And it is a puppet alien zombie feature.
Nice.
I'm in.
And I encourage listeners, if you're curious, just based on that, to check it out on fearpix.com, or you can get it on DVD or Blu-ray on Amazon. Apocalypselovemovie.com is the website. So
Nice.
we always love to support independent horror and genre creators.
And don't we love it when people at Monsterpalooza bring us gifts? That was great. I love it.
Of course.
Yeah, and what a gift. My God.
That
That thing is so beautiful, and we should take some pictures and show the people.
The Ted Haynes Frankenstein.
Yeah. Oh
Yes.
my God.
Ted, you're the best, man.
Based on the classic Jack Davis poster that you could get
That's
in the
right.
back of a Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
it's interesting when you see it. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to take it out of the package, but he's designed it in such a way that you can open the back.
It's perfect.
perfect for collectors.
Perfect for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, into package. And Matt, I think you'll also have an additional shout out.
Well, I do. I would like to give a shout out to friend of the show and really a very important person when it comes to the episode that we just did. And this person would be Ed Martinez.
Ed Martinez.
Oh, the
Ed.
lovely and talented Ed Martinez.
Oh.
Ed, in his career, he's been a special effects makeup artist and has done so many things for movies. He's worked on a lot of, I guess you would call them cult films, but like The Dead Pit, Galaxis, and Black Devil Doll. I mean, great stuff.
Yeah.
And he's just such a wonderful guy, and he was very helpful in helping us get John Stanley on the show the first time. And he's just a lovely guy. And so if we could all just give him a quick little toast.
Absolutely.
Ed Martinez.
Ed Martinez.
Hey,
Ed, thanks for all your help, buddy. Thank
Yes.
you.
That's good, Martinez.
And I want to hang with that guy. I want to.
Me too. And he wants to do that too. He wanted us to maybe like when we're in the Bay Area, come
like
visit him, and I'd love that.
Like us, he grew up in the Bay Area. He knew about Wilkens and John Stanley and
August Ragoni.
I mean, he actually went to school with August. They made a funky little film called Ultra Cyborg, I think it was.
Which is super fun.
Yeah, and I think on YouTube right now you can I think type in Ultra Cyborg bloopers and you can see some of the behind the scenes stuff. And for a group of kids to shoot on video, I mean they actually have like kung fu fighting. It's pretty darn
the
amazing.
stunts are
Matt
off the charts.
Man,
really.
wouldn't you believe? Like, my films are nothing like this. I didn't have that kung fu fighting stuff. It was great.
I set myself on fire and then I stopped there.
Right.
But Ed, thank you so much, buddy.
Yes.
This was a dream come true. I mean, this is the second time we've had John Stanley on, but it's
always
just
great.
It's just such a thrill.
You're the best.
Well, guys, you know what? Even after 3 days of Monsterpalooza, I'm happy to say we still have merch left over.
Right. That's not possible.
We did not run out. We did not run out. So, listeners, anybody who's interested, you can find Monster Party merch. That's the t-shirts with the logo and the kaiju design by Derek Robertson, the Monster Party shot glass, the Monster Party legendary ball cap, the Monster Party PPE mask. You can find all these wonderful things on our eBay store, which is, you guessed it, Monster Party Store on eBay, or just type in Monster Party Podcast. And if you also happen to be a Patreon member and buy our merch, we will throw in free surprise goodies, courtesy of our good friends Jason Lindsay at Biff Bam Pow Toys, and our good friend, the aforementioned foam fabber extraordinaire, Ted Haynes.
Two men who we like to think of as our featured creatures.
Yes.
Ooh, nice.
See what I did?
Mhm.
Nice. Now, guys, we just had the legendary John Stanley on the show, and I'm somewhat overwhelmed. So I don't really know if I can describe what this Patreon thing is all about. 'Cause right now, my brain is just swimming with all these interview stories.
Yeah, you're verklempt.
I'm verklempt. I'm verklempt. Can you please refresh my memory?
Well, I'll try. You know how John Stanley, through his interviews, provided us with an inside look into the exciting lives of celebrities? Well, Patreon does something similar by offering you an inside look at the only celebrities that really matter, us. Learn all about what makes us four scrappy monster kids tick by experiencing a slew of exclusive Monster Party bonus content. Now, we're talking content like our special audio episodes, shows like Monster Party Masterpieces, Monster Party on the Road, and the mega popular Toy Time series.
Yeah, that's right.
Ooh.
We also have our legendary Japan trip video diary, behind the scenes convention footage, and vintage sci-fi and horror fiction edited by our resident Lyscarian, John Bordeaux, and more.
Well, that sounds wonderful. But I gotta say, I got a whole back catalog of John Stanley books that I have to go buy now on Amazon. So I'm not sure that I can afford this plethora. How much does it cost?
Well, for the price you would pay me to interview James Gonis about the hottest Palm Springs swinger clubs, you could become a Monster Party patron. And that price is $5. $5 a month.
What?
That's a bargain. I mean, you can't get a life-size blow-up Angelique Pettyjohn doll for that price.
Oh, no. No,
Sure.
I'm still saving for the deluxe edition.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm sold. How do I join?
Well, all you have to do is you go to patreon.com, you go to Monster Party, you click join, you follow the instructions, and next thing you know, you'll be as happy as John Stanley ending an Irwin Allen interview early.
And speaking of disasters, we are on social media. We are on Facebook at Monster Party TV, YouTube at Monster Party TV.
Nice.
Twitter at Monster Party HQ, Instagram at Monster Party HQ, and hey, big announcement, we are now also on Blue Sky at Monster
right.
Party
Hey.
HQ.
What?
Yep,
Wow.
branching out. So
Wow.
for those of you on Blue Sky, please search for us, Monster Party HQ.
Woo!
And hey, wherever you're listening to us, please take a moment and write a review, send us your thoughts. We would love to hear them, and we will read them on the air.
And we won't just read your review. We'll have John Stanley review it.
Ooh.
On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong.
And experience all of John Stanley's work in every format.
And if you happen to run into Arnold Schwarzenegger, tell him to give me my rope ladder back. Wow.
So, gentlemen, make it so.
Aye, Captain.
I can't do the podcast, Mr. Stanley. I can't do it. The lithium crystals are bleeding out everywhere.
Formation.
John, this looks great. For listeners, John has appeared to us, and he's on the bridge of the Enterprise.
The classic bridge.
Classic.
Yes.
James,
Looks
you
great.
remember, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
TOS.
And he's wearing his
Going to a
watch
new
horror
planet
films.
in 2 hours.
And you're watching your
How
watch
are
horror
you?
films Keep America
Oh.
Strong shirt. Love it.
We're all good, right?
Yep, we're all good. It was great.
You look terrific. I love the shirt. I can almost hear the beeping of the instrument panels on the ship. And I say we try to find Angelique Pettyjohn, because that's
Yes,
the only
yes.
Oh.
Where is she?
thing could be any better.
John, thank
we
you
go.
so much. That was
Awesome.
great.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
John.
Yeah, that was
John,
incredible.
If you're up for it, I'd love to sometime down the future. I'd love to drop off a bottle of vodka or something for you. You know,
Yeah.
this has just been great. Thank
I
you
love
so much.
3 olives if you can find that.
You know
Okay.
what? We can make that happen. I know
Yes.
people.
That's right.
We can make it so.
Thank
So,
you
John,
very much.
thank you, John. So I know that Dennis has to get going, and thank you so much for
Yeah.
spending so much time
Yes.
with us.
And,
We really appreciate it.
Try to get home before dark.
No,
That's when the monsters rise up.
That's right.
Dennis, I'll have to bring over a bottle of vodka for you as well.
Yeah,
I'm more of a
everybody
whiskey guy, but thank you.
Oh, whiskey.
Okay,
Don't call
just
him
make a
Rip Torn
list.
Dennis for nothing. Or is it Chug-a-Lug Dennis?
Yeah,
We'll take care of you, Dennis.
Chug-a-Lug
Yeah, it's going to
Dennis.
be cocktail hour when we pull into town. But this has really been an honor. And again, you are a staple of my life. So to share this time with you has just been so wonderful.
Yes, I've had a great time. It's
Excellent.
very unusual.
Well, that's good.
All right, John, thanks much. Dennis,
God,
thank
I'm
you so much.
85 years old, but I'm still here.
Oh, no,
yeah,
going
heck
strong.
yeah.
God bless.
Yeah.
Going strong.
Okay, thank you. Good
Thank
luck
you.
to
All right.
all of you.
Cheers.
All right. See you guys.
Stay
Long and
happy.
prosper.
Stay monstrous.
I'll do my best.
Okay, I'm counting on you.